I'm on my second marriage. I have this little girl. She's 1 year old, and I found out about the cancer.
To be real rude here, Damon, you get cancer, it's your fault.
You will never make it to Shark Tank if you're not alive. As an African American growing up in my neighborhood, we let other people set goals for us that I thought initially I was going to be dead or in jail by 21. That happened to most of my community, but I had a mother. I call a mother the ultimate entrepreneur.
Biohacking is the idea that you can take control of your biology, and you do it by changing the things around you and inside of you.
Wow.
Thank you.
That was a flurry of success. However, there was a point in time where you shifted your focus from the external to your health. What motivated you for that shift?
I think what motivated me was that I went and got an executive physical. I never knew what that was. A friend of mine said, you need to get one. They found that I had a little nodule on my thyroid. I go to get it removed, and the 1 hour surgery becomes 5.5 hours of removing a golf ball size of stage 2 cancer. And I realized that, being entrepreneurs or being business people and being of service to so many other people, we often aren't of service to ourselves. I'm the dumbest person in this room when it comes to, health and wellness and various other things. But we all know the data shows that early detection, you can catch things in time. And I realized that what was I doing if I couldn't walk my 3 little girls down the aisle? So I made a turn to really be focused on it, but it took me about 3 years to really do that, because we all know what we want to do or what we should do, but we don't do it. And I realized it was actually drinking that was fueling all the other downsides of what I was doing. It was a vicious cycle. So I started making that change, started hanging out with people like Dave. I started hanging out with more people and listening to more what they were doing and taking small steps towards it. And now it's been my journey and my goal to share it with everybody. I'm the only, besides obviously Mark is going to talk about some other things that he's doing, but I'm really the only public shark that really goes out and talks about this stuff that has, you will never make it to Shark Tank if you're not alive.
Yes, that is true. And health is the common denominator.
Yeah.
Dave, you have been called the father of biohacking. Let's take a look at the current state of biohacking.
19.5%, the compound annual growth rate of our biohacking industry. $24 billion, the biohacking industry in 2023. $68 billion, that's the expected worth of the biohacking industry by 2032. $600 billion, the longevity sector projected worth by 2025. And a 6.2-year increase in global life expectancy between 1990 and 2021. A 9-year biological age reduction with just one follistatin gene therapy injection.
Wow. How would you explain biohacking to someone who is completely unfamiliar?
Biohacking is the idea that you can take control of your biology, and you do it by changing the things around you and inside of you. It includes your cells, your hormones, what you eat, the light you're exposed to, the practices you have. And it turns out that a lot more of aging is the exposome, the things around you, than inside of you.
Where should someone start if they were interested?
Well, first is understanding it's up to you. And I'm going to be real rude here. Damon, you get cancer, it's your fault. It's because you didn't know what you were doing, but there were things you could have done if the world had done a better job of setting itself up so that you had the health that you now have. Because you said, I'm going to do something, I'm going to take control, and you did it. So I, as a former 300-pound guy with most of the diseases of aging before I was 30, I spent $2.5 million reversing my age, getting rid of all that stuff. I'm 6% body fat now, and I'm not on Ozempic. And it's this core idea of control. So what the heck would you start with? People say, oh, this is something for rich guys. So were mobile phones at the beginning, right? It was $20 a minute. And now they're $1 a month in Africa. So all new innovation doesn't work very well, and the very wealthy do it. And where people can start is things like learning how to get a good night's sleep. And wouldn't it be crazy if instead of just saying, I think I slept 8 hours, that's what the doctor told me to do. Well, the doctor looked at the studies of 3 million people for 3 years with a lot of good data. The people who live the longest sleep 6.5 hours a night. It's not that 8 hours is good or bad, it's that the quality is more important than the length. So maybe you should start with getting something that'll track your sleep. I have 2 sleep trackers on. There's some ultra humans out there. How did I do last night? You're running a business. Did I make money yesterday or did I lose money yesterday? Well, how was your recovery? Just knowing means, well, maybe it was the glass of wine, right? I also haven't had a drink in a long time because I realized it's just not worth it, right? So you can start with just tracking. One variable is how recovered am I in the morning? And this is a couple $100 investment. And if that's too much, this will sound super crazy. Get dimmer switches and blackout curtains because circadian biology is more effective for things like bipolar than some drugs if you honor it.
Circadian biology certainly is the next frontier. Daymond, as a high-achieving entrepreneur, how has these changes affected your productivity, your focus, your overall energy?
It's compounding, right? You start off with some of these small actions, and it has turned into massive, massive change. It's exactly what Dave said. It's taking inventory. I'm way more alert. I have a better quality of life with my wife, my kids, with my entrepreneurs, with everybody, and it is just about feeling better, but feeling good yourself about what you're doing. And then it's like anything else, you get fascinated by it and you start to, the things you think about the most, you become. We mentally wake up every day and set goals, or we let others set goals for us, right? And if we are always going to think, I'm getting to the point where I think that I'm going to be 120 years old. I want to walk my little 3 girls down the aisle. But as an African American growing up in my neighborhood, we let other people set goals for us that most of us were going to be dead or in jail by 21. I thought initially I was going to be dead or in jail by 21. That happened to most of my community, but I had a mother who is, I call a mother the ultimate entrepreneur, right? I don't care what book you write, nothing against the dads. I'm sorry, we don't risk our lives to bring people into the world. But, when a mother has to take a child to ear infection 3 times a month to the hospital, she doesn't give her child up for adoption. Kevin O'Leary would. But, so.
Is he in the audience?
I got a couple of those coming. But then it went past 21. Wait, I said, my mother believed me, I can go past 21. Then I was like, I can go to 30. Then I was at 35, going, 55. Now with the health, I'm like, wait a minute, 100. Healthy 100. Right? So the changes have made me just more excited about life. And when you get more excited about life, you want to be a bigger contributor to life, to others. And that's just what it is. It's compounding.
That is wonderful. Dave, what are some of the most simple yet effective biohacks that anybody could do?
Well, one of the most effective biohacks is the subject of my next book. It's called Heavily Meditated. And there's a guy probably in the room. I was sitting next to Deepak Chopra yesterday, and I said, how's your health? And he goes, well, I don't take any drugs, never had any surgeries. All I do is meditation and yoga. And I'm 78. So maybe meditation would be a good thing to do, but I don't know about you guys. I've always wanted to wake up and spend 2 hours meditating, 6 hours exercising, all right, the rest of the time prepping my food. Problem is, even if you double your lifespan, you just caught up to all the time you wasted doubling your lifespan. It's not sustainable. So I'm interested in how do I get my meditation, my peace in less time? And so one of the easiest and cheapest biohacks isn't just meditation, it's meditation with breath work. And if you look at the science of what happens with this, you're not going to get it on a prescription pad, but you look at what happens to the length of your telomeres. You look at what happens to your stress hormones, to your vagus nerve, even to your hormone levels, to the quality of your sleep. And we can teach everyone how to meditate. And we can say, well, great, meditation is great. Use any of the various headphone devices. Or maybe do a soundtrack and do the, yeah, you look silly, so do it with someone else so you both look silly together. But this is free, and you can do it in community. Oh, and what's the other big longevity hack that's free? It's community. I had a former US Surgeon General on my podcast, and the only book he ever wrote was The Epidemic of Disconnection, right? And how do you handle that medically? Well, you don't. You handle that societally. You handle that with culture. And there's been a huge decline in the number of clubs people are members of. Remember bowling leagues? Yeah, I remember them too. I'm not a member of one. So building community, it's free. Breathwork is free. And learning how to be great at whether it's exercise, doing it in less time, doing your meditation in less time, and driving for results. It frees up a huge amount of time for parenting, for your career, for the things that you actually wanted to do instead of things that you had to do to stay healthy. And we have a lot of beliefs that, oh, if I just work out more, I'll get better results. I went to the gym 702 hours in 18 months. 90 minutes a day, 6 days a week for 18 months straight when I was 300 pounds. Guess how much weight I lost? 0. Still at a 46-inch waist. I'm on a low-fat, semi-vegetarian diet. I'm craving food all the time, and it's because I'm not trying hard enough. Maybe I was overtraining. What do the doctors in the room think, right? My cortisol was off the charts. So teaching people, you know, you've got to do enough to get the results you want, and then sometimes stopping is better than doing more. So what do we have now that's very affordable? Do a better job of meditating. Maybe then it'll be worth every minute of time you spend, because most of us won't do the 2 hours a day. And maybe black out your room and see some sunshine in the morning. Like, totally free. And then maybe if you're making a food choice on your plate, we can have a belief, maybe based on the food pyramid, that isn't very science-backed. Sorry, maybe the new one's better. And the results of it don't seem like they're working if I look at obesity rates. So every choice you make, it's not about good or bad. It's about, how am I going to feel after I eat this? Am I going to wake up the next morning puffy? Am I going to get brain fog right afterwards? So you don't have to be perfect. Just choose the better one. And I know this works because my daughter texted me when she was 13. She said, Dad, I was at school. They didn't really have good food choices this day. And these were my 2 choices, and I chose this one for this reason. Was that the right choice? Neither one was perfect. So let go of perfection and just say, I'm going to make better choices. I think there's good evidence for reducing carbohydrates. There's good evidence for not drinking very much. And without trying to get political, maybe pulling red food dye out of our food is a good idea, and other chemicals that are unnecessary because they just aren't well enough tested. And maybe our government will do that. Maybe our employers will do that. And maybe we'll just make those choices. And if we teach people to make choices that have less artificial things in them, then manufacturers will respond. And I've met with the CEO of Coke, the CEO of Pepsi. I've built a $100 million plus consumer packaged goods brand. You guys probably have heard of Bulletproof. And all of them said, we want to make healthier food, but if it costs a half a cent more, then our competitors will make the cheap stuff and we'll lose market share. So there's this race to the bottom, and we stop the race to the bottom by changing our demand in society. And that can happen in the doctor's office, it can happen with coaches, it can happen online. You're about to cross 1 million followers, and you're telling people, get enough protein and look what happens to your body. And there's so many low-hanging fruit that are not expensive. And after that, you should definitely spend 25 grand on longevity gene therapy the way I have.
By the way, Dave is going to be paying for it for everyone. So this is a question for both of you. And this is, how does success in health parallel success in business? What lessons can we learn from one area that cross over to the other?
Well, being present is the hardest job, especially for a CEO. Because as Elon once said, being CEO is like eating broken glass every morning for breakfast or something. And he says that because all the hardest problems roll up to you that your team can't handle. And if something is a threat to the company, it feels like a threat to you. And I have found over and over, if you want to be present, you got to learn the tools of presence, and you have to have the biological state that allows you to be present, and that comes from mitochondrial function. And I'm not just saying this. I've had more than 1,000 high-performing CEOs, celebrities, athletes come through my neurofeedback center. And we're having them do intense meditation for 5 days straight, measuring their brain waves, so you can't not meditate. And if I feed them right, they can do 2.5 times more meditation before they hit the wall. And if they just eat what they normally eat, they just can't do it every day. And since the job of business leadership is so important, do you have enough electricity in your brain consistently all day long to never lose your shit, even when things around you are really not going your way, so that you can share that, not just the behavior with the team, but your inner state is congruent with your outer state, and then your team feels safe. Otherwise, you're smiling, but inside you're dying. They all know that. You don't want to do that. That comes from food. It comes from sleep. It comes from movement, and it comes from sunshine.
Daymond, did you want to add to that? Otherwise, I would love to hear more about your health journey.
My health journey. Well, I shared with you, and I think I brought a slide around here because I shared with you, my health journey. So, I grew up, I didn't have any money, and, I got to the point where, I did have money. I was 30 years old with, over 20 million liquid in the bank, and I realized that when, I went to a restaurant, she said, would you have the steak, lobster, or chicken? I would say yes. I never could do that, right? But then I got to the point where, I'm on my second marriage. I have this little girl. She's 1 year old, and she brought this new desire to live, but I didn't want to watch her walking down the aisle as an urn on the front seat, right? And I found out about the cancer. But I got to tell you, after that, I had failed for so many years, in trying to alter my life. And that's when it was weird because it's funny. 1989, Good Friday, 3:15 in the afternoon, I would stand on a corner and I would sell $800 worth of hats. That would change my life. 2017, Good Friday, 3:15 in the afternoon, the surgeon would put 4 marks under the word God and over the word bless on my neck. And that 1 hour surgery became 5.5 hours. And I realized at that point that we concentrate on everything else. In the last 12 months, I lost 25 people. 4 of them, probably, maybe Irv Gotti and Matumbo and John Amos and various other people. But ever since I had gotten that thing removed, it took me 3 years to figure it out, just like the correlation of business. I had to take inventory. And at the end of the day, there's only 2 jobs that a CEO has, no matter what. It is the bigger vision and then to clear the bottlenecks. And I always say that when you think about life, if you think about it as every single time you solve a problem, you create another problem, then you'll always win at life, right? So whether it's in your business, you have too much inventory, you don't have customer service. Once you have customer service, you have bad inventory coming back, then you need a warehouse, da-da-da-da. Same thing with my life. I started to realize I wasn't mobile anymore. I wasn't doing anything. So I decided after that, I think they have a slide, I started living so much on the edge after having this mentality, the same as Dave is, that I never went diving with the sharks ever. I never went scuba diving, period. I think they have a reel of me going scuba diving in the open ocean with tiger sharks with no cage. I think they'll air it up there. And it's really to show how much I have been, that's me, right? I think you can know, I'm the black guy on Shark Tank. That's me right there. I got all my limbs, right? And then that is a, come on, move the camera, and that's a 14-foot live tiger shark in the wild. That thing could have ate all of us in 3 seconds.